Hi, another reading of Ardamin, Clone 7, Chapter 3, Part 3. Decided to do it next to the Christmas tree because it's only a couple of days before Christmas. And I just wanted to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to those of you that don't believe in Christmas. The man who placed the chains on Ardamin checked the locks and the handcuffs one last time, grunted and left the cell. The girl who had once been called Viridian came back into the cell and grabbed the chain around Ardamin's waist and pulled on it, leading him out of the cell. The other 5 zombie drones followed behind. He was led without sound through the complex out into the car park where he had entered. The bus was still in the same position, but it was surrounded by drones. Thousands of them. Male, female, large and small, adult and child. They parted as she led him through the throng. They didn't utter a sound. Drones never do. The average drone looked very similar to the human they had once been before the change. Their jaws opened wider and of course their skin looked dead grey colour. It had to do with the black ooze that passed slowly through their system in place of blood. Their eyes were unchanged except for the colour. Every basic drone had steel grey eyes with a soft white covering protecting the unblinking eyes, which made them look even more like the dead. The faster of the aliens, commonly known as speeders, looked like runners, thin and gangly before they started running. They still appeared human until you saw their hands and their claws. The claws looked like that of a tiger, and their hands were elongated as were their arms. Their claws almost touched the ground when they just stood there. Ardamin knew the thumb claws were hollow, and like the drone's canine teeth, they were used to inject their victims with the terrible converting nanomachines. A slash by a speeder could inject their victim with enough nanomachines to start the conversion process. Why they had left the legs human, Ardamin could not understand. Perhaps it was part of some sick perversion, or perhaps it was meant to give the surviving human race a chance to get away. But that didn't make much sense, did it? The heads of the speeders were bald and striped with blue and grey markings like some strange paint pattern. But it wasn't paint. It didn't matter the skin colour of the host, from the darkest to the lightest colour of the person's skin. The head colour always turned out to be the same, though the stripes and markings varied slightly from speeder to speeder. The eyes of the speeders were cat-like, but bigger, and the skull was elongated. Upon obtaining samples of the 3 main types, Colonel Ardamin ordered vivisection and autopsies. They were performed by the surviving scientist team under Dr. Theopolis. The elongated heads were filled with extra brain matter. The lead scientist, Dr. Theopolis, hypothesized that the extra brain was not only used for telepathic communication, but the expanded visual centers. While they could not be sure, they expected them to see in the ultraviolet and infrared range, and perhaps even into the microwave range. They could only run limited tests on the brains upon attaining such creatures, as with all the aliens they had brought back. But the cloned Ardamin trusted the scientists. After all, they had created him and the rest of the troops out in the field as well. They had no reason not to trust them. And then there were the ones Tico called bricks. There were a few in the throng. They stood about 7 feet tall, which meant they stood out in the crowd. Also in slightly greater number than the speeders, they were the last of the common aliens, the bricks. Brick walls, or just plain walls. The name varied from person to person, but they all meant the same thing. Death if you got caught by one of these huge abominations. The bricks are taller than the speeders. The colouring was quite different. They were a slate grey with deep blue markings all over. They were naked, or at least they lacked clothing. Their chests were triple the width of a normal man. Under the thick, almost solid skin, they were heavily muscled. Small caliber firearms would just bounce off them. Even high-powered rifles did little damage when hit in the chest. Nothing about the sexless brick seemed small. Large, thick, bald head. Huge, muscular arms and large, heavy hands with only 3 chubby fingers. The hands formed a large paddle that a brick could swing through the air and break the neck of their victim with a single swipe. Tree trunk legs and elephant-type feet. They were as slow as a Type 1 zombie, but they made up for it with strength. Ardamin had watched the footage of one destroy a concrete building with just its hands. There were 2 ways of stopping a brick. Shoot it through its small eyes with a hollow point round, or hit it with a grenade. A grenade would knock it senseless for a time, but if you didn't finish it off, then when it awoke, it would tear you apart. Bricks did not have a means of nanomachine deployment, but they weren't used often, but when unleashed, it was a devastating weapon. And that's where we'll leave it. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Enjoy your time off if you have time off. For those of you that have to work through the holidays, I'd just like to say thank you. There are people like doctors, nurses, policemen, firemen, shop workers from the shops that are open. All these people help keep society trundling along, and I thank you. Honestly, I thank you. Now, may you have a wonderful time, and I will see you just after Christmas, I hope. Bye for now. I do apologise. I don't know why my voice went croaky all of a sudden. Even though the air conditioning's on, I still need a bit of a wipe. Oops. Pardon me. That didn't come out right, did it? No. Cut that bit. You know this, Ross.